Well, hello everyone, and welcome along to Unplug It. Back-to-back victories. Of course, last week we celebrated 6 years, and obviously the miracle of Marvel and everything that came with that astonishing victory against Melbourne. This was clearly a very different afternoon of the footy, which we'll dissect in a moment. Nick Splitter away this week has caught the spicy cough. He's got COVID, which is still a thing, and he's out of action. Hopefully fighting fit soon and able to get along to the MCG on Saturday against the Tigers. But obviously nothing was going to match what had happened the week before against Melbourne. It was always going to be extremely difficult, probably to back that up really off the emotional high. I mean, there would have been some school of thought that maybe you ride the wave through and, you don't look back from there, but at the same time, it is very difficult to land your feet back on the ground when you've had a historic, and that's what it was, win like that. And look, North can play some dangerous footy this year. Obviously, they've had some results over Melbourne and Carlton where they've kicked a stack of goals in a hurry, and it was probably difficult to hold them out a little bit at the end and to get the result. I mean, a win is a win, and not necessarily one that you'll plug into the archives and watch 20 times over summer as you wait for the new season. But it was good to get the points. Aaron McGrath is with us as per the norm, and H at three-quarter time, we're probably thinking we've probably grabbed hold of this game and are relatively safe. But obviously, we were then challenged in the last quarter and had to win it very differently.
Yeah, it was a game that I don't think a lot of us went into thinking we're going to do exactly what Geelong did to them the week before. There was I think a genuine concern they would come out and actually hit us pretty hard and play good footy because it felt like they didn't even play any football the week before. So it was. I think they've almost spared a bit of energy for this week, knowing that they gave 15 minutes to Geelong and went, "We can't keep up with you. That's it." And they came out and hit us pretty early. And I mean, Curtis literally hit Hasty early on, which probably should have been one less goal in the first quarter for him. But it's up to half time. You're going, oh, okay, yeah, we've sort of wrestled the back a bit. The third quarter seemed like, okay, we've seemed to have taken a little bit of control here. But they came out in the last and almost gave us a bit of a taste of our own medicine from the previous week. And they, as expected, probably played some decent footy. I don't see a Clarkson team being beaten badly like that 2 weeks in a row. There would have been a bit of soul searching, and they definitely showed that during the week that's what they'd been doing. And luckily enough, we found a bit of that defensive pressure at the end there, and were able to hold on. And I think I was saying to a few people that there was a number of people who didn't realise that Hall had kicked it. Hall had kicked that last goal at the end, and at the time as well, I almost felt like I was one of few people actually around the stadium that knew that he was actually going to be kicking for goal. It was luckily it pretty well happened right in front of me, and saw it all happen and went, okay, we got another kick here. But even they got the song going before he'd taken the kick. They didn't realise, and luckily it fell our way there, and we're able to hold on.
Yeah, it was. I think as Ross mentioned in the presser, it was 11 inside 50s each in the last quarter, so it wasn't as if it was all one-way traffic, just we didn't take any chances. Obviously, Heath had that one that was well set up through the middle that he missed, but that was our only score prior to that. North kicked 2 goals in the first 2 minutes of the last quarter, and then it was, 1-3 to 1-1 or something after that. So they weren't blowing us off the park in the last quarter, but clearly we lost our ability to go inside 50 with some degree of efficiency. We had 11 scoring shots in the third quarter and 2 in the last, one of those after the siren via a 50-metre penalty. But Michel Egan is with us, stepping in for Nick Splitter this week. And Michael, your summation from, I guess, your vantage point on the game, as we were just saying, it was difficult to come off the high of the week before, but I felt like we dominated the second quarter and didn't get enough scoreboard reward. We're a point in front at halftime, probably could have gone a couple of goals past them. And then obviously the third quarter we did get reward, but obviously slipped back in that control in the last.
Yeah. Thanks for having me again, guys, and get well soon, Nick. Yeah, I heard another Saint social media commentator describe the game as the highlight of it was the half an hour of the week before that they showed on the screen before the team ran out, which wasn't maybe not 1,000 miles away from the truth, but yeah, it was not one you'd ever want to bank for the archives and watch back again in the off season. But St Kilda North games of late have had a bit of a habit of doing that. They tend to be, even when we were, you know, further up the ladder and north where, where they've been for the last 6 years, they always seem to kind of drag us down to our ground to their level a little bit. And I thought there was a bit of that on Sunday. Early on, they ran harder than us. They killed us on the outside. They'd had 57 more possessions at quarter time, which that's a big differential. And you'd look at that raw stat and think, oh, we'd be 6 goals behind, but we weren't. As you said, in second and third quarters, we had our chances to sort of really get on top of them and maybe even put the game away, but we didn't. We didn't take our chances. I didn't know. Aaron talked about the Max Hall 50-metre incident, saying that I heard the siren go, everyone was singing the song, and I had no idea what had happened until I bumped into Aaron outside the ground walking back to the station, and he filled me in on what happened. As he said, he had a slightly more elevated viewpoint, but and then someone threw a bottle out onto the ground. So we seem to attract fans who throw bottles out on the ground. That's 2 seasons in a row it's happened now. So yeah, it wasn't one for the highlights reel, and at times North looked like they could have got hold of a Serha, looked pretty dangerous for a while. He kicked, I think, 2 goals too, which, and the 2 points that he kicked were pretty gettable. Larky came back well because we always seem to get key forwards back against us. Next week, Tom Lynch comes back and for our game. But no, not one for the highlights, but we banked the 4 points, 2 in a row. It's been a while since we've done that, and take the points, take the confidence. Max got his Gatorade shower, and we move on to the Tigers next week.
Thought he showed a bit too, Max. Obviously, he missed that chance to seal it in the last quarter. We kicked 2 goals, took marks inside 50, did some reasonable ruck work. And I think, his foil role for Rowe was important. Ryan Marshall played probably his best game for the season, or at least very close to it. And Hunter Clark, we've obviously seen this sort of pattern a little bit in the last few years where he misses, say, half a season, then takes maybe a month to build momentum and then finishes the season strong. And I think we all hope that he just gets a run at it. He plays 20 games in a season or whatever it may be. But he did remind us again that, he's a pretty important player with his poise and polish around the ball.
Yes, it just seems to be rinse repeat with him at the moment. We get him good, he falls off, gets injured, comes back, shows a bit, happens again. We just want a good preseason, get him in round one, get a good run because he's got the skill, he's got that time to do things. He just has that similar sort of, as we've said before, like what Del Santo used to have at times. He'd pick the ball up and just be able to assess what's ahead of him and move to sort of through where he needs to, and it just provides so much through there. When he's playing good football, he's pretty hard to stop. It's just getting that confidence in his body and in himself, and we see it now. Like he knows he can provide something really good for us, and continues to do so. And I just want a season where he can play minimum 20 games at least. We want to see all 23, if possible. And it's just, he's got to be one of the unluckiest guys we've had over the recent years. And it's really unfortunate for us that we haven't had him full season just to work out and have him establish a position and not have to chop and change and work around not having him there, and just be a consistent part in a team, because I reckon that will help us immensely. And he's one of those players that he's sort of goes unnoticed at times, but people who analyse the game will see what he does, and it does provide us quite a lot in the middle there, and the players around him will lift with him when he lifts too.
It feels like, Michael, that a midfield that had Clark and Filippo together with their own class and poise would be an enormous benefit for us, which we haven't really had at any stage this season. So that's something to look forward to, I guess, is one question. And the second one would be, we saw Marshall play really good football alongside Paddy Ryder for a couple of years. Played his best game for the year, I think, this week just gone, with a second ruckman in the side in Max Heath. I know that hasn't always been the case with him, but the question that's been asked since Tom de Koning was on the radar is there room for both of them? And I think there is. How do you see that partnership, if indeed it is a partnership, happening?
I'm fully in favour of the two ruckmen. I think whilst Rowe had a terrific game and, he features well in my votes, you'd almost expect him to, given the quality of North's ruckman, with no Tristan Cherry to play and no Callum Coleman-Jones, who was out injured. That wasn't a strong ruck lineup that North put in, and Rowan had a chance to sort of find some form, and he did it. No, he was terrific. But let's see how he backs it up against the big next week. If he can play a game like that against Nankervis, he's definitely back in town. As for Hunter Clark, I think we might almost have the luxury now of playing Hunter more off half-back and using him almost as like a replacement Nass. Now the Nass has gone into the midfield, Garcia, we've got in the midfield Jack McRae, Windhager. Do we now have that luxury of plonking him at half back and letting him use those foot skills and the evasiveness and his good decision making there? And he can also take a turn through the midfield, of course, but his poor battered, banged up body at the moment. Hopefully, maybe the days are gone where we need him to spend too many midfield minutes.
Speaking of midfield minutes, I'll save the Jack Steele conversation for a bit later on in the awards. But yeah, look, obviously we've unlocked beast mode Nash as a midfielder, so it does give us flexibility with some some more defensive run options. We'll also obviously talk about Nash as well as we go along, and the VFL performances of a few players, with Darcy Wilson getting 37 touches, Paddy Dow continuing to put his hand up. And obviously there's at least one spot available with Mitch Owens doing the hammy, which is a season ender, a 3 to 4 week injury, and we have 3 weeks left. So confirmation that he won't get back. So we'll talk about that structure soon as well. We'll tie the North Melbourne game in terms of votes before we look ahead to Richmond and discuss some of those other peripheral topics. For me, I very nearly shared best on, but I just couldn't quite. But I gave one vote to Jack McRae. Not enormous possessions, had probably 22 or 23, but it was a low possession game generally, apart from a couple. His tackle pressure was good, obviously having a very nice season. I thought Jack Sinclair close to best on ground at halftime, and his polish stood out. Kel Wilkie did a lot of nice intercept things, particularly pivotal last quarter, I thought, as well. 2 votes each to Clark and Marshall. Had a hard time splitting their performances. Maybe Marshall if I had to, but 3 votes to Nass. Not as unbelievably dominant as the week before, but still 36 possessions. Some of the polish and run, and you see that in games where maybe the standard isn't through the roof, that those players that clearly have that poise and class and polish do stand out. And that run that ended up with that Max Hall shot at goal in the third quarter was unbelievable. But Michael, your allocation of 10?
I gave 1 to Brad Hill. I thought it was his best game for the year. The decision making and disposal of the Brad Hill we need, I thought, was back to pretty good effect. I gave 1 to McRae, 22 possessions, as you said, but only 66% game time. I think and he spent a fair bit of the last quarter on the bench last week against Melbourne in our comeback. So I think the club are maybe managing his minutes, given his veteran status and the fact we're getting to the end of a long year that they're managing him. I thought he was very good. I gave 1 to Sinks, just polished, as you said, poised, made good decisions. Hunter Clark's best game gets 2 votes from me. His best game for a very, very long time. And I'm just hoping that, as I said before, we have the luxury of popping him back at halfback and using him as a NAS replacement, for want of a better phrase. I thought he was terrific. 2 votes to Rowe. I could have given him 3, but as I said before, maybe just he didn't have much to beat. Let's be perfectly blunt about it. And 3 to Nas. As you said, it wasn't a high quality game, but a couple of the things he did, were just Nas things, and I figure if I can give him best on ground and he somehow hears this and it helps him sign, then I can say I've done my bit.
Yeah, I love the cheer when he got the first possession of the game about 5 seconds in. Obviously, didn't have a chance in game time to do it the week before because he kicked the winner after the siren.
When they read his name out.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty special. But hey, yeah. Yeah, there's obviously been a bit of that, suggestion around the channel. So hopefully that some of that filters through. But H, your allocation.
Yeah, like yourself, I wasn't able to split them, and maybe not. I'm going to give a little bit of reason to why other way, but gave one to Hugo Garcia. I was quite happy with what he did in the middle. It was, just gave us a little bit of something different. He's got that, as I've said before, he's got that bit of bulldog in him. He's a bit of a rough and get in and get ball and see, just do anything to get it in and get it out there, and he's going to do some really nice stuff for us in the middle in time to come, and I reckon he plays a nice back up to Naz as that running midfielder with him, and it's going to be a nice thing to have if he's I don't know, like a fifth midfielder or something. He's like needs to give a bit of run on the back line at some point. Maybe he could also do that sort of thing. We're talking about Clark before as well, but he's got plenty to offer us. One to McRae, for all we've said before, is just keep going on, and hopefully it's just a just continuation of a few more years of what we've got left of him to go, and just to keep the group together and keep teaching all the younger guys the stuff that he's looking to do, which I'll touch on something else coming up as well. One to Clark, as we're saying, he played a great game. Probably one of his better ones he's played this year. I almost took one off someone else to give him 2, but just couldn't quite do it. One to Sinks, same old, just keeps working, keeps giving us options. He played a bit more defensively now, it seems, that with Naz in the middle, he's got a bit more of that quarterback role happening again. Just hits his targets more often than not, which is great. I've given 2, 3, but I'm going to give Naz first, 3. It's everything we've said. He's just keeps doing. He's not even playing a midfielder. He's literally an on-baller. Where the ball is, he is. And he's literally, if he hasn't got his hand, he's within meters most of the time, it seems like now. He's just been, Ross has just said, go for it. Get it as often as you can and do as much as you can. I reckon most players on the weekend, they were taking marks and looking, going, is Naz nearby? And a few times he was there and he would get the hand off. And but yeah, he just finds the space and just keeps providing. He's going to cause so much issue to players in opposition teams in the midfield in years to come. It's not going to be an easy job for any of them. I mean, he was tagged on the weekend and had 36. It's quite an effort. So, but I'm going to leave Marshall to last with a 3 as well. In the middle, and as we're saying, probably one of his better better or best games this season. The just breaking free from his player more often than not. That was one of the things he was doing. Like the running off and getting that pass in the 50 and kicking the goal. He just left his opposition behind on the day and just ran hard and got those deserved breaks when Max went into the middle and gave him a bit of a rest. And I think he's looking at how he's playing. You sort of think, well, okay, he's hopefully coming around to that 2-ruck role, and he's liking the looks of it. He'll probably be closer to a 50-50, maybe 60-40 sort of thing next year. But I think he likes the idea of having that bit extra support and another player helping him out, especially against the likes of a Nankervis or a Grundy or Gorn, players like that who will just take it out of you all day, and he's the one who's going to beat them around the ground, and hopefully it means that De Koning's the sort of craft ruckman that's going to be the one that takes that part of the game, because obviously it's never been a strength of Rowe, but everywhere else he generally dominates most other ruckmen.
Yeah, his influence as an additional, almost an old school follower from the sort of early 90s in that Steins, Scott Wines type mould. But the Jason Blake Award now, I don't think I've given this player this particular award before, but I'm nominating Brad Hill. I reckon over the last couple of weeks. Now, there's obviously aspects of his game where, if he's caught one-on-one and things like that aren't ideal, but there were a couple of little things on the weekend that he was able to do, where he'd get an intercepting hand in, or he would use pace and then paddle the ball into space for somebody else to run into it and he wouldn't get possession. But a few of those little deft touches, we obviously saw that one from Zach Jones at half forward that set up Higgins' in-swinger goal, but Brad Hill did a few of those, and I thought he played a pretty solid game. Wanted to mention him here because I wasn't able to get him into the votes quite. Michael, who was your Jason Blake?
I gave it to the big moose, Max Heath. I think his 3 games so far have been really solid. He's providing a good contest up forward. He's splitting contests that Isaac Keeler couldn't, whereas he was just getting bodied out. Max is at worst splitting the contest, and all of his 3 goals so far have come from free kicks. And I reckon Nick Rewalt would look at that and go, geez, I reckon I kicked 3 goals from 3 kicks in my entire career. So whatever the magic dust that Max is sprinkling around to get the umpire's eye, wouldn't have minded a bit of that over the last 25 years or so. But I've been really happy with his 3 games so far.
Yeah, it's a good shout. I almost gave it to him actually beforehand, so I'm glad that he did get a mention here. H, your Jason Blake?
Go to Huey Boxall. He's starting to show a little bit now. He's really starting to show that he's got something for us coming up. He's surprisingly big as well, which a lot of people have mentioned lately. So when they've seen him out there, thinking, "Hang on, we thought he was like a medium-sized forward or medium-small a midfielder sort of thing," but he's got some size on him, and he's probably going to get a bit of strength and conditioning in him, and he's got that potential to be, I guess, in that mould of and size of a Cripps or Bont or whatever, that sort of thing, and perhaps run through the middle as a bigger midfielder. So he's got good skill. He's got good reading of play and a bit of a footy head. So he's going to be one to watch from now on. And some more definitely games coming up towards the end of the season and keep him in there, I hope. So it's one I'm really keeping an eye on because I feel like he's got a lot to offer us coming up.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call as well. Good sweep this week of those. The Shannon Knoll Award for who needs to lift. This is where sort of the Jack Steele conversation comes into it. I think, and look, it is the job of people to judge particular decisions, but I think people saw Jack Steele's name next to the sub and thought, oh, well, clearly that's a critique of form and that's a message to the captain that you've got to lift and do all of this sort of stuff. And I'm like, well, I guess you don't know the reasons until you go to the press conference and ask the question. But that doesn't necessarily stop people from putting that conjecture out there. Now, look, yes, I understand that the sub rule with us this year has raised conversations around how it was used, where we had an unused sub. We dragged a kid before half time in another game. We did that last year with Riley Bonner as well and a few others. But I think if you want to know why Jack Steele started as sub, wait till the game's finished and ask the coach. That to me seems the logical thing to do. And as Ross explains, he'd been a little bit sore. They probably wanted to rest him. They know there's a 200th game on the horizon for him. He's still got some influence. You probably still want his leadership in the event that someone goes down early. We're still a young, developing midfield. Jack's a warrior. He's carried his body through the last few years under a fair degree of duress. So, and I don't think a close look at his form would suggest that he should have started sub on that. So there was clearly going to be another reason for it. So, yeah, I thought some of that was a bit premature. Michael, you're Shannon Noel?
Just before I do, I completely agree with your comments. And the first thing that springs to mind to me was Scott Pendlebury's future career going forward called into question when he was made sub by Collingwood? I don't think it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's funny. I saw the extended bench on Saturday and I saw both McRae and Steele were on it. And I thought, oh, gee, I wonder if, one of them's going to get managed. But, yeah, I don't recall any talk about Scott Pendlebury being traded elsewhere when Collingwood made them the sub. I gave my Shannon Knoll, unfortunately, to a bloke who's just done his hamstring and he's going to miss the rest of the year. It's a big picture thing for Mitch, and it's not to do with his set shot kicking for goal. The other little thing he's got to try and get out of his game is shoving blokes out of a marking contest really unsubtly. He did it twice on Sunday and was picked up on it. There was another one that he was a bit lucky to get away with. And I've just noticed it as a bit of a thing during the whole year that he just needs to be a bit more subtle and, just ease blokes under the contest rather than putting two hands in their back and just pushing them.
It's an interesting stat too, Michael, on that. I think he's ranked number 3 this year for, I don't know what they would call the stat, free kick involvements, in the sense that he's received a high volume of free kicks himself, but has also given quite a lot away. I think he's number 1 at our club for receiving free kicks, but he's number 2 behind Rowan Marshall for giving them away, and Ruckman by nature give away a lot of free kicks just because of the grappling and things that they do. So yeah, he's I think he's been involved in, it's something like 66 free kicks or something, combining for and against. So yeah, he either gets manhandled or he does the manhandling. So a little bit in that technique. H, your Shannon Noel?
Not necessarily a stab at someone or that, but Alex Teru, let's have a massive game. Let's get that nomination. Let's put your name up there and get it. So let's lift and have a huge game this week. There's a good opportunity too. There is a talk around of, do we really want to play every single game left this season? If he doesn't play one, he's still eligible next year. So it's a question of, how about get a really big game this year, get a nom, hope maybe have a rest one week and see how it goes, and try and maybe pick the whole thing up next year. So, but yeah, let's at least see him get the nomination. He deserves one before the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't get one against Freo when he had 14 spoils because a West Coast player had 18 possessions or something. Yeah, he was a bit stiff that week. But yeah, generally they tend to find them for people that they think should have had one. So took a couple of nice marks on the weekend as well.
I think he had 50. He had 100% of our contested marks at half time, which was 2, as I recall.
We have been doing a little thing called It's Time to Talk About. There's a few listener questions related to it, which is obviously the time to talk about list changes. But before we preview the Richmond game, obviously the NAS thing, last week there was a lot of talk around, that was the perfect week if it was going to happen. There's always those nerves. I didn't take anything at all out of his comments post game. Some people saw it as particularly positive. Some people took it as particularly negative. I thought it meant nothing at all, basically, when he just said, the club and the manager will talk through that. I mean, without giving too much away, though, I know Nick mentioned a couple of weeks ago that he said Nass would stay, and he's been backing that up, and we've been having a bit of fun around, what he might be asked to do if he's wrong. But I think the mail, Michael, over the last 48 hours has been more positive for us than it has been in recent times in terms of conversations around our club, conversations around other clubs, other managers, other players. So the wheel, I feel that there might have been a period where we'd lost some momentum in that, but I think from what I can gather, I'm fairly confident that the momentum is very much back in our corner. So, as it was put by a list manager of another club or a CEO of another club, players, it used to be considered a bad sign that players wait a long time. It's not so much the case now. If you're in good form and your stocks are going up, it's hard not to worry because, he's a generational talent. You recruit players like that once every 25 years or something to get a player of that capability. But I'm still thinking from what I've gleaned from a few people in the last 48 hours that we're still in pretty good shape. I don't know how your confidence levels are, Michael.
Yeah, look, that's a good shout. In St Kilda's case, I think it's exactly 25 years since we've had a bloke.
Well, yeah, that's right.
Contribute to the side. I know I saw some chat after the game that Sarah Jones basically asked Naz the question, and Naz put his elbow in the air, played a perfect defensive shot. A few people saying, why did she bother to ask? Well, I don't know. If you have anything or have any knowledge of the media, you'd know that if she hadn't asked that question there, she probably wouldn't have a job the next morning.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say something related to Nas, but not when the decision is made, and sooner or later there will be a decision one way or the other. Obviously, if he decides to go, then we won't know until our season's finished because they're not allowed to announce it. If he decides to stay, he could tell us anytime. But it's 2025, and the chances of the club being the very first people to announce this is not great. So I just wanted to say that I know it's happened in the past. People pop the club for leaking and not being able to keep secrets, and people want to hear it first from the club. That's great, but it's not 1985 anymore, where you're only two ways of finding out about footy, with the 6 o'clock news and the Sun newspaper in the morning. There's a million media outlets there, and it's competitive and it's voracious, and someone is going to get told before St Kilda can hold a press conference. Look what happened with Simon Goodwin this morning.
Before the players knew,
Yeah, the players knew. They held a press conference at 1 o'clock, but I looked at my phone at 8:30 this morning and I knew about it. So the media landscape's changed, and for better or worse, we're going to hear about it before the club can get on the front foot. But look, I agree with you. I think the whole longevity thing is, as you say, maybe they're just crossing the T's and dotting the I's. As you said, Naz is getting better by the week. Every Monday morning his manager can just go, okay, we'll just add a few little numbers at the end, because he's just getting better and better each week, and becoming more important each week. So, I see no body language. Compare that to De Koning at Carlton. I see absolutely no body language that has him checked out or anything, except that he's loving where he is.
Yeah, and look, I'll be as nervous as anyone until he signs, but I think we'll be okay. I think. So we'll see. Yeah.
It has that feel of it's he's either him or his manager holding out to absolute last minute possible, and it seems
Manager, I think.
a way.
Yeah.
It seems a way a few of them have
Hmm.
done it. So I mean, word keeps going through, going, no, it's positive, it's positive, it's positive. Even his body language seems to be positive towards us, and it's still possible that he does go elsewhere, but it certainly feels like it's not going to happen, at least right now. And
Yeah,
we should look forward to it happen, to him being back next year and doing what he's done in the last month for a whole season. And how good would that be? Watch for a whole year, because he'll give all the major awards a good shove next year if he keeps playing like that for
yeah.
a full season.
He's transferred from the gun half back to an elite mid, to then obviously went forward and won a game off his own boot in the last 10 minutes as well. So, yeah, he's got all of those bases covered. But yeah, fingers crossed we get the right result. But still confident, as much as you worry until it happens. The Tigers,
Nick's very much hoping so. That's for sure.
yeah.
Locking him and Phil in a room will be
Yeah, it'll be a fair bit of chatter, particularly from one side of that. That's for sure. Richmond MCG, I do like getting out to the. I mean, I know we've lost at the G this year to Carlton, but as a general rule, I think it suits us fairly well with the space, and obviously you want to get more looks at it. No, Mitch Owens hurts our forward setup. The potential changes, Michael, to game. We've won our last 4 against the Tigers. All of those, 3 of those have been at Marvel. One was in Norwood in South Australia. Last time we played them at the MCG, we lost. That was in the Cochin 300th when it absolutely belted down with rain. So how do you see that the changes? They have to make at least one. How many more than that do you think they'll make? You'd suggest that Philippou, Wilson, and Dow are the 3 most in contention?
Yeah, for sure. It just depends how they want to play it. I know they said Dougal was a test, but I can't see him. He's missed so much footy. I can't see them bringing him straight back in, even with Tom Lynch back in their side, which of course happens against us. They get Taranto back as well, which will stiffen their midfield a bit. But yeah, I think Darcy deserves another chance. I didn't see any of the Sandy game on Sunday because, of course, it was on at exactly the same time as ours, because that's how the VFL fixturing works. But it just sounds like he was, knocking up disposals and clearances for fun by the end of the game, and I think he deserves another chance. If they wanted to bring in Paddy or Philippou, I think the obvious 2, well, maybe not so obvious 2 exclusions would be Zach Jones and Ronnie Burns. Not that they've done too much wrong while they've been in the side, but, there's 3 weeks to go. Do we look at the future? Do we load up that midfield with, as you said earlier, Philippou and Nas and Darcy Wilson and see what happens? I mean, there's still some very good players in Richmond's side. We're going to have to be careful. Vlosten's in, all-Australian form this year, and he'll just, we don't need him taking 23 intercept possessions because our forward entries go a bit awry as they did last week. But we should win. I think Richmond have got a lot of young kids who are, feeling a bit sore. Like they get Lynch, they get Taranto back, but really on paper we should have their measure. But everyone said Carlton were going to smash them in round 1, and look what happened. So no certainties in football.
Yeah, they've had a pretty decent year, I think, based on, some people said they'd definitely win the Spoon. They've won 5 games. They've at times looked a bit tired, but yeah, they are quite young, and we do. It does feel like they've been a pretty good matchup for us, even when they were good. So yeah, I'm just excited to see us play out the MCG and hopefully put in a good performance there. But as Michael said, we've got to be careful. They've claimed a few scalps.
Yeah, well, the changes that we'll potentially make sort of probably brings us back to a similar kind of lineup to what they have, if even a bit more middled than what they have. They've got a few of the top end older players as well. We got a couple. We got probably a bit more of a seasoned, I guess, middle group, and then the number of youngsters that are coming through, and it's kind of a good time to play a similar team like that, a bit like Northler we had last week, just because they're the kind of players and groups that are going to be playing each other in years to come now. So just to get a good idea where a number of these guys sit in comparison to the players that they're going to be playing against for all these years, it'd be good to see a few of these matchups. And but yeah, those changes you talked about are probably about what we'll be looking at. Be good to Philippu's, I'd say probably the change for Mitch.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
probably the change that one that gets done. It's can play a similar kind of role, I guess. It's not, he hasn't got maybe quite the height and the jumping that Mitchie has and that sort of thing, but he will play a similar kind of role. And yeah, it might be time for Jones to. I've probably got Jones out ahead of
Burns.
Burns at the moment. To be honest, it's Burns has probably still got a bit more to offer. Jones is getting towards that end now. He's probably, if he's on the list still for a couple more years, he's definitely a top up. And yeah, I mean, when he comes in, geez, he gives everything he's got still. That's great to see. He at times, as I've said, he's been our best player out the field in some situations, and especially the early on against Melbourne last week. But yeah, it's probably time to start bringing these kids in, and just that's what we need to play.
Obviously, I wanted to give a shout out earlier, but it was our final home game of the year last week, and a big thank you to Ticketverse for their support, partnering us all through the season. But don't stress, obviously there's a world of sport still to play. Singapore Grand Prix, Caulfield Cup Carnival, Premier League blockbusters. You got Man United, Chelsea and the Spurs, and also some of the European giants like Barcelona and Atletico Madrid on our shores, or perhaps cricket, Boxing Day test and the like, basketball, rugby, supercars, whatever you're into. Make sure you check all of that out at Ticketverse, premium seats, personalised service. Visit ticketverse.com.au to explore your options. Tickets sorted. Also, you can jump on and give us a rating, hopefully 5-star on whatever your podcast channel is, and make sure you subscribe to YouTube where we pop all of the videos up. We did ask for some listener questions. A thread has started where Shrapnel asks a question as to the list changes, because you have to make at least 3 at the end of the season. So you can go along and reply to that like a lot of people have done. They've kind of jumped onto that thread, but I guess they are the conversations we have to have soon, Michael. Zach Jones will be involved in that conversation. But anyone else you think? I mean, Jimmy Webster, have it on good authority that he 100% wants to play on for at least another year. Whether the club agrees with that or not, we'll see. But the kids, certain guys like, McLennan, hypothetically, and a few others, those conversations will be had. The ones I'm most curious about is what they do with the tools. So if they get to Koning and keep Marshall, they'll persist with Keeler. Obviously, they've got Dodson, who they rate very highly. Boyd will get delisted, you would think. Where does that leave Max Heath? Would they keep him as well?
Yeah, fair question. As you say, if we assume that the TDK is coming, I don't think there's room for Boyd. It seems like every week we name a ruckman as one of the emergencies. It's always a ruckman. It was Boyd for a while. Then it switched to Max Heath. He's now got his chance, and as I said earlier, he's done very little wrong. So I think Boyd's days would be numbered. Dodson's played some terrific footy in the VFL for a young fella, and if his improvement continues like in a linear fashion, you could almost see him playing some senior footy next year. Of course, big blokes aren't like that. Sometimes they stagnate. We thought, Max Heath on his first half playing for Sandringham was going to, be an automatic inclusion by now, and he plateaued a bit. But, the big blokes don't always come along in a linear fashion. Interesting about Webster, I would have my doubts. I think that half-back position might be with Hunter Clark's burst of form, with Webster's injury issues of late. I think he might be a bit of shaky ground. Ditto Zach Jones. But as a bit of an aside to that, of course, we have our own VFL side next year. And one of the problems that Sandringham's had this year and why they've been barely competitive when our injury list was so bad was the lack of established ex-AFL talent in the VFL list. Our VFL list consisted of basically a bunch of 19 and 20-year-olds who'd come from the Sandy Dragons or the Amos or wherever. And I think blokes like, I'd be offering Zach Jones the captaincy of the VFL side.
Yeah, 100%.
I know that's been mentioned by others before. Perhaps Webster's another one they could look at because we get 100% of the say now in how we structure that VFL side. And I think, while we're having conversations about delisting AFL guys, I think we can, as a bit of a parallel discussion, look at how we start forming our VFL side because we need some of that kind of player in there to A, become competitive and B, to become sort of pseudo coaches for our young kids.
Agree with that entirely. Hates that we would look at that type of option.
Just quickly,
with the talker,
there's probably another name that we haven't brought up yet. Zane Cordy, where's he? That's the if getting Lee Kalir into the defence is happening, then he might be possibly looked at. I reckon. He gets put back another position there, and it's how deep is required? How deep is the depth that we need for the backup defenders? And I guess that will come down to what happens to Howard as well. Whether if Howard goes on, and I mean we're assuming he is, but it might be Cordy who ends up being the one who we end up saying sorry to. But again,
I agree with that.
He could be the same thing for the VFL too, I
Correct.
guess. So, yeah.
We've been linked to Liam Ryan. Us and Essendon have been linked to Liam Ryan coming across from West Coast. I do wonder if that's been sparked by us. I wonder where that would leave. Say, I mean, Dan Butler, clearly highly regarded, put in the leadership group, but he's had some injuries over the last 2 years, where he might have played half a season in both of those years, had a few Achilles issues. You'd think he would remain. Collard, as much as he might not have necessarily set the world on fire, his contract still has a fair bit of time left on it. So you would think that they would continue with him as well. But yeah, there's a lot of those interesting conversations. Our list turnover has been pretty heavy of late, so I wonder whether we'll do that again or it'll be a bit less. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say Ryan, I feel, is one that you would look at if you're on the cusp of something, and we're not quite there yet. Where he's not going to be someone who comes in and wins us a premiership. We don't have that list where he slides in and gives us something we're missing. If he comes to us, he's potentially comes and goes before we do something. I don't see it being a real positive move, to be honest. So I'm not completely sold on that one. So
I think that's the last word on Zane Cordy as well. I mean, he was brought in, the description was when we drafted him as a break glass replacement for Dougal Howard, and then Dougal got injured, and we didn't break the glass. We sent Caminiti to the back line. So before Cordy got injured, so I think his days are very much numbered.
Yeah, definitely. With Lee Kalir probably coming, and then if they hopefully rate Barrett and keep persisting with him, Taru, Howard, Caminiti, so Wilkie. So you obviously want to I know he was a backup forward early days, but again, you're hoping King and then some combination of De Koning, Marshall, Sharman, Owens, and your smalls with Higo and the like. So, interesting times in terms of what that all points to over the next few weeks. Thanks for jumping on and listening. As we said, we do have a special guest interview that Nick's working on behind the scenes in between his COVID battles at the moment. So certainly wishing him well, and you'll have that one, pumping out on the YouTube channel over the next few days. But looking forward to Saturday at the MCG, and thanks for listening again. Go Saints.